Hello all, welcome to the course on Python programming for beginners. We are in module 11, object oriented programming, lecture 3. In this lecture, we are going to discuss about the instance variables, class variables, the difference between instance variables and class variables, and we'll see an example program to show the demonstration of the instance variables and class variables. Let us look at the instance variables. For that, let us see an example class test. Here we are writing a constructor by using the init method where the first parameter is self and it is taking one more parameter which is num. So that is the num is the attribute of the test class. So in this self.num is initialized to the num value that is being passed whenever an object is instantiated. So when we create three different objects, T1 equal to test of 10, in that case, the num attribute of T1 is assigned to the value 10. And similarly, when we create another object T2 with the parameter 20, in such a case, the num attribute of the object T2 is initialized to the value 20. And similarly, for the third object T3, since we are passing test of 30, here the num attribute of the object T3 will be initialized to the value 30. That means if you can observe, each object is having its own copy of the instance variable. So if each object is having its own copy of the attribute, then in such a case we call it as the instance variable. That means instance variable means the variable that is specific to the object. That means they vary from object to object. So in this case, the num value for T1 it is 10, the num value for T2 is 20, and for T3 it is 30. So all the three objects have different values for the instance variable num. Now let us look at the characteristics of the instance variables. If the value of the variable varies from object to object, then such variables are called as instance variables. And every object has its own copy of the instance attribute as we have seen in the previous example. So T1 is having the instance attribute value as 10, and similarly T2 and T3 they have the instance attribute values as 20 and 30. Instance variables are declared inside the constructor, that is within the init method using the self keyword. In the previous example we have seen self.num equal to num. This is the way we instance variables are created by using the self keyword and that too within the constructor init. So instance variables are declared inside the constructor and the init method using the self keyword. And once you define the instance variable, we can modify it by using the object reference if you want to assign a new value. And the change made to an instance variable value of one object will not reflect in the remaining objects. That means, for example, if you modify the value of num of T1 by using T1.num equal to some 15, in such a case, only the value of the object T1 will be varied to 15. It does not affect the values of the instance variables of T2 and T3 or the num variable of T2 and T3. Now let us look at the class variable. Unlike instance variable, which varies from object to object, class variable is specific to the class. That means all the objects of the same class will be having the same value for the class variable. So look at this example, class student. Here we are using a variable called as school underscore name, which is initialized to ABC school. So here school underscore name is called as the class variable. So no matter how many objects you create, all these objects are going to have the same value of ABC school for school underscore name. And on the other hand, instance variable is assigned with the value that we pass whenever an object is instantiated. So the instance variables are defined within the constructor. On the other hand, class variables are defined outside the constructor but within the class definition. They have to be defined within the class definition only. So when we create two objects, S1 equal to student Emma and S2 equal to student with name Jessa. In this case, the name is called as an instance variable which has different values for different objects. So the name is having different values for S1 and S2. On the other hand, both of these objects S1 and S2 are having the same value for the class variable, which is ABC school. So the class variable is shared among different objects of the class. All objects share a single copy of the class variable. So no matter how many objects you create, only a single copy of the class variable is available, which is shared by all the objects of the class. Now let us see the characteristics of class variables. Class variables do not vary from object to object. They are common for all the objects of the class. A class variable is declared inside the class but outside of any instance method or init method. But instance variables have to be defined within the init method only. On the other hand, class variables are defined outside the constructor and also outside the any instance method but within the class. And we can access class variables from inside the constructor or from the instance method by using either self parameter or the name of the class. So we can access the class variables by using the name of the class or by using the self parameter whenever we are trying to access the class variable from within the constructor or within the instance method. On the other hand, if we want to access the class variable outside the class, then in such a case, either we can use the object reference or the class name. Always it is desirable to use only the class name when we are accessing the class variable. And we can also modify the value of the class variable by using the name of the class. Class name is used to change the value of the class variable. And changing the name of the class variable is going to affect the value of the class variable across all the objects. So if we change the value of the class variable, the change is going to be reflected for all the objects of the class. On the other hand, if we change the value of the instance variable, only the value of that particular object is going to vary and it does not influence the attribute of other objects of the class. Now let us look at the differences between class variables and instance variables. Instance variables are not shared by the objects. Instead, they are different for different objects. On the other hand, class variables are shared by all the objects of the class. And when it comes to declaration, instance variables are declared within the constructor, that means within the init method. On the other hand, class variables are declared inside the class definition but outside the constructor and outside the definition of the instance methods. An instance variable gets created whenever an instance of the class is created. That means whenever you create an object, only then the instance variables are created. On the other hand, the class variables are created whenever the program begins to execute. And the changes made to the instance variables by one object will not reflect for other objects. On the other hand, if we change the value of the class variable, changes made to the class variable will reflect in all the objects of the class. So these are the differences between the instance variables and class variables. Instance variables are specific to each object. On the other hand, class variables are shared by all the objects of the class. Now let us look at the demonstration of a program by using a program to show the difference between a class variable and an instance variable. So demonstration of class variable and instance variable. Here we are defining a class called as student, where we are defining a class variable which is college underscore name, which is initialized to CBIT. So here you can observe this college underscore name is not initialized within the constructor, but it is defined outside the constructor, but it is within the class definition only. So college underscore name is a class variable. On the other hand, roll number, name, and age. These three are the instance variables because we are defining within the constructor and we are using the self keyword. So it is a parameterized constructor. In this case, we are passing roll number, name, and age so that those values can be initialized whenever an object is instantiated. So here we are creating two objects, S1 and S2. S1 with the values 1 as the roll number, name is Aditi, and age is 20. Similarly, S2 with roll number 20 and name as Rana and age as 21. So when we try to print the roll number, name, and age of these two objects S1 and S2 by using a for loop, it is going to print the different values which are specific to S1 and specific to S2. So again, we are changing the value of the class variable for which we are using the name of the class. Here you can observe college underscore name is the name of the class variable. And if we want to assign a new value, which is MGIT, in that case, we have to use the name of the class. Student dot college name equal to MGIT. Now, when we print the values of roll number, name, and age, and again the college name of S1 and S2, it is going to print the new value of the class variable, which is CBIT, is now changed to MGIT. So with the first for loop, we are printing the values of student roll number is 1, name is Aditi, and age is 20, and student S2 and college name is CBIT. Here we have used the class variable which is called as the college underscore name, which is initialized to CBIT. That is why the college name is printed as CBIT for both the students with roll numbers 1 and 20. And we have then modified the value of the college name to MGIT by using the name of the class followed by the name of the class variable. So when we try to print the values of both the instance variables, which is roll number, name, and age for both the students, it is going to print the same values. On the other hand, the class variable value is changed to MGIT. So the new value is printed here. So with that, we came to the end of this lecture 3. In this, we have discussed about the class variables, the features of the class variables, and also the instance variables. And we have seen a demonstration which is an example program which shows the difference between an instance variable and a class variable. Instance variables are defined within the constructor. By using the self keyword, we have to initialize the values for the instance variables. On the other hand, class variables are defined outside the constructor and within the class definition. So with that, we came to the end of this lecture 3, and we'll be discussing about the other features of object-oriented programming in the next class. Thank you.